One of the things we do in our psychotherapy when we're working with families is, hey, what's going well? Let's
Right.
talk about it. Let's talk about why that's going well. What didn't go so well this week? Let's talk about why that didn't go well. How could we do it different? And what's coming up?
Yeah. Yeah.
And from what you shared, that family didn't share with you. They forgot to tell you about the birthday party. And had they told you,
Yes.
you would have gone through that and said, hey, let's kind of do that roadmap. Because that's such a common thing that I find is, maybe they didn't do it that way. Maybe they didn't do, like, maybe it wasn't an isolated thing. And with the teens, to bring up their cognitive, their ability to, kind of change their thoughts, their behaviors, their patterns. So what have you worked specifically with this particular teen? Because they're avoiding because they're anxious and they don't like the feeling. So they learn to avoid the feeling, right? So
Exactly. Yeah.
tell me what you're doing with him. I think our listeners
Yeah.
would love to hear too.
Yeah, no, and before I get to that too, I just want to preface like what you mentioned about, with the younger child. This was a situation where this was actually one of my first sessions with them, but as you mentioned, like these are all things that we navigate like in our sessions, right? Where we like I would have known about that birthday party ahead of time and we would have like really problem solved and like talked through it. And I think that's something that's really important is for those families that work with us, or if you're kind of like wanting to learn a little bit more about what we do, is a lot of our sessions are like, oh, tell me what the next month looks like. How can we kind of like troubleshoot and go through things? So I think that's definitely really, really important. For the teen, yeah, I mean, we definitely bring in a lot more cognition, right? Where we talk through where the, where is like the, I guess, origin of this avoidance, like what's kind of causing some of that. And we have just gotten to the point where he's realizing it's honestly more so relatives than other individuals. Like he's more comfortable actually with strangers than he is with his relatives, which I think for some of our individuals, that stems from
So
maybe like having
common.
lesser of an expectation. And they also don't know me as quote unquote the individual that doesn't talk. And so, especially for our teens and older children, I think the more years, right, that learn conditioned behavior, it also comes to the fact that they have learned, that they don't communicate in these settings longer and longer, but people around them also learn that. So grandma knows, oh, this, my grandson doesn't talk to me. So if he says one word to her, oh my goodness, they're going to create like the biggest deal ever versus he can have a full on conversation with his waiter and be fine. So I think like there's definitely dynamics there, but I would say that for an older child, like you said, it's so much more cognitive. We're really diving deeper into like, let's talk about like why this is difficult. And let's
So
also
is he
talk about
coming out of his room now? Like, what happened? Is he starting to say, all right, for the first 10 minutes, or I'm going to be busy in the kitchen, or giving him, like, what are you
yeah.
doing with
Well,
him?
I would say for him, what we did was, it's actually been like a process. So I would say that like we really tried to narrow down like what are the specific triggers. And for him, it was the fact that like his uncle, aunt, grandma, and his cousin were coming at the same time. And so we actually went through like I created a list of like, okay, who's your most comfortable relative to your least comfortable. And he was most comfortable with his cousin, who's actually a little bit younger than him, and then he was least comfortable with his uncle. So we talked about how, okay, well, like it's great that you're having family gatherings. Obviously we can't always avoid that because it's important, right? But maybe we could talk with mom and dad about like maybe having get-togethers with your cousin who's a little bit younger, who you guys have a lot of similar interests to. So that's been really effective where now he's also learning like I don't have to avoid when I see my relatives. So he's almost like restructuring in his mind that he's not avoiding his relatives. It's more the dynamic of all of them together. So we actually recently, he had just had his cousin come over and it was just the two of them and it was so effective. And his mom actually reached out after because this is a teen who's like still living under the same roof as his parents. And she was just like, that was incredible. Like he's literally never had an experience like that before. So I think it's just showing that like we can be flexible. We can try to figure out like what are small gains that we can win from that because I think sometimes it can feel so scary. It's kind of like if you think about a hierarchy, right? From like 0 to 10, 10 being like the most like avoidable, right? And 0 being like I can do it. We're not going to start with the most avoidable things, right? We're going to maybe think about like what could like a 5 or 6 look like. And for him, a 4 to 5 was like bringing his cousin over versus like all of his relatives was like a 10. So he was learning like, oh, I'm really only avoiding it when it's like all of these things together. So now we're like kind of breaking it up.
So when they come over, is he like now? Because eventually, aunt, uncle, and grandparents are going to come over. one of the things that I've done with some of my kids is we have them come at different times.
Mhm.
I have them be busy with something, like maybe, like, for example, I'm working with a teenage girl, and similar, like, this is so common with relatives, like you said, they often do better with strangers. So practicing in the real world, building up those skills actually carries over, but
Mhm.
also educating them not to ask a lot of questions. But the girl I'm working with, she's about 15, she helps mom in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's not the most ideal that she's, in the kitchen when they come, but she could eventually greet or be part of it, but it's okay. So she's
Yeah.
cooking something she loves. So she's
Yeah.
focusing on that. And when they start to be engaged, they may say, "What are you cooking?" So
Yeah.
we did the common questions. What could they ask you? Like
Yeah.
an action plan. You're in the kitchen. So that really worked for this one girl,
Yeah.
Rebecca. She just thrived. She's like, you know what? I feel good there. That's where I'm myself. Like,
Yeah.
I love it. And I'm so proud of my baking abilities. Like, that's
Yeah.
my favorite thing to do. So when they come over, that's what she's doing. Plus, when she goes to their house now, she brings it in. Instead of, "Hi, how are you?" she's handing over something in the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, so we bridge down. I want our listeners to understand that if your child is not speaking, it's not a fail. Of course they're going to become more confident social verbal communicators, but it's a process,
Yeah.
listeners, and sometimes you bridge down for comfort and then you bridge up, and by bridging down you're actually helping them feel safe and secure, which
Yeah.
allows them the fuel to progress more. And so
Yeah.
as the gathering goes on, but let's go on to, because we can talk just about that, but another is the shutdown. And I don't know about you, but the typical shutdown occurs much more common in younger kids because of that kind of neurological reaction, whereas older kids like tend to be more avoidant and they don't look as anxious. But that shutdown is usually a result of being loud, large, lots of people, overwhelmed, and not prepared. Like,
Yes. Yes. I would say yeah, no, I would definitely say preparation is probably the biggest thing that I see with the shutdown. I would also say this is actually one where, I mean, all of them are important to understand the contributing factors into the maintenance of SM, but to me, I see a lot of shutdown with individuals that have a lot of sensory
yeah,
sensitivities because if they're in large, loud, lots of people environments, as I know you always say, right? And they're in like a large, loud restaurant, right? That's very classic for them to actually just maybe from actually even like a neurological standpoint, like their body just literally shuts down. Like they are so overwhelmed. They're so overstimulated in many ways. So there's different, I see kind of both. I would say for like a classic younger child that shuts down and kind of freezes, as you're saying, preparation is so important. I just had a client actually who she was 8 and she every single time her mom would have her family friend come over, she wouldn't actually avoid. So she wouldn't like hide, behind mom, but she would just almost like freeze. And she's a little bit more cognitive. Like eight's a little bit more cognitive, where like I actually talked with her about that. And she would say to me how she actually really enjoyed, like it was like her favorite day of the week. Like her family friend would come like almost every Saturday. But her mom would be like, "I don't understand though. She's so stuck. Like she's frozen. It's like she literally can't get her words out, but I could feel like she wants to." So just the subtlety of like preparation made such a world difference. We talked about how she just got a new cat and we kind of like walked through the entire get together. And I said, "Okay,
a
what would
roadmap.
you want to the roadmap?" Like I would be like, "What would you want to do first?" And she really wanted to show her family friend her new cat. And we talked about it. I was like, "Well, let's think about the social communication bridge." Again, she's a little bit more cognitive. I was like, "Right now we're at stage 0, right? We're like frozen. How can we think of like growing across the bridge, right? If stage 3, like using our words, feels so scary and very unrealistic right now, what could be other things we can do?" And she was like, "Well, I guess I can always like, maybe like show her my cat and kind of like, non-verbally like kind of move the cat towards her. I guess I can also like show her some of my cat toys that I just bought by handing it to her. I can also, we talked about like using mom as a verbal intermediary where mom could ask her 1 or 2 questions about the cat. So we like mapped out this whole thing. And again, it was such a successful experience where just that preparation of knowing she freezes, right? Thinking about, okay, we're first going to show the cat, we're going to start with some nonverbals to kind of warm you up. And then they had the great idea. Again, she's super motivated, where mom was going to question both family friend and her. And she really wanted to do she wanted to do cat trivia. So we came up with 3 really great questions about cats, And it was good for me because I don't know much about cats. So it was really fun for me to
I
learn.
know you're a dog
And
person.
yeah, I'm a dog person, but I don't discriminate. But anyway, it was such a successful experience. But again, it kind of went from that frozen look of like she literally would just her body would shut down to now we're every single time that we meet, we're thinking of other ways that we can really get her more engaged. And then maybe that can carry out to other people that she's kind of quote unquote frozen with and shut down. So I would say that like frozen is a little bit similar to the avoidance piece, but again, a lot of it's stemming from like almost like our body shuts down. And from the sensory piece too, I always say that's a huge piece of like how can we create almost these coping skills, right? Like I have some clients that honestly, when they go to large, loud, lots of people, they need to wear headphones or they might need to bring like a fidget to kind of soothe them. Or they might need to. I have a client who brings like a weighted blanket with her because she just gets really overwhelmed and almost needs like a little bit of that like comfort for her. Also, preparing like not going to large, loud, lots of people environments. So I have some clients that like we'll talk about that and I'll say, like, I know that Cheesecake Factory is your favorite restaurant, but this smaller cafe, you might be seeing way more success and you might not see yourself as frozen. And the more that you practice there, we might start to notice that we can wean towards more of those like larger, louder places. So,
And go during
um,
off hours too. Like
exactly.
it's funny you brought up Cheesecake Factory. We have one somewhat near the Smart Center, and this particular family will go like right after our session. So we tend to have a session around 1 o'clock. She'll go around 2. So if they come in later and they go at 5, that's really overwhelming. So they go before the crowds and they always sit in a booth away, even if
Hmm.
they wait because they feel safer.